Hi, welcome to our program. I'm Vida and these are your headlines. Defense Ministry identifies 61 tycoons. Malaysian Prime Minister blasts superpowers over sanctions. Khmer urged government to reduce financial burden on employers. Prime Minister calls for strengthened flood measures. Government streamline access free steps. Cambodia becomes one of the largest rice exporters to the European Union. As always, we start with national. The Defense Ministry on Tuesday said it has identified 61 tycoon title holders in the Royal Cambodian Armed Forces. The move follows Prime Minister Hun Sen, who said all those in the service and the National Police must choose between their state position or private titles. Tycoon or Oknya in Khmer is a title given to those who have contributed at least $500,000 to the government. A number of tycoons hold key positions in the armed forces and the police. A CPP spokesman last month said the move is aimed at eradicating conflict of interest. Defense Ministry spokesman General Chom Suchit said it has identified 61 tycoon holders at the All-Caps High Command headquarters thus far. General Suchit said, quote, 16 have agreed to give up their military positions, adding that 45 other military officials gave up their tycoon titles. Additionally, the National Police has identified 33 of its officials holding the tycoon title. Interim Ministry spokesman General Khieu Samphet said the National Police are drafting a list to be reviewed. General Samphet said police officials should not have held multiple positions, noting that, quote, we can't deny that people have been using the powers that came with the Oknya title to gain business advantage. Malaysian Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad has slammed powerful countries for imposing what he called grossly unfair sanctions on smaller nations. He made a statement about the sanctions during a meeting with Prime Minister Hun Sen at the State Palace on Wednesday. Mr. Mahathir said sanctions are grossly unfair and hurt not only the country that is hit, but also its business partners. He said, quote, as a small country, we cannot apply sanctions on anybody, but it is the big powers who apply sanctions and therefore deprive small countries of their freedom. Mr. Mahathir said powerful countries talk about human rights and freedom, but they take away freedom to trade with trading partners. The kingdom has been hit by visa restrictions on high-ranking government officials by the United States, which is also threatening to revoke access to the generalized system of preferences over perceived human rights setbacks. Additionally, Mr. Hun Sen and Mr. Mahathir exchanged views on various regional issues, such as the South China Sea dispute, Rohingya refugee crisis, and North Korean nuclear weapons program. Mr. Hun Sen said Malaysia and Cambodia have expressed support for Timor-Leste to become the 11th ASEAN member state. After the meeting, both leaders witnessed the signing of two agreements on tourism cooperation and double taxation avoidance. Mr. Mahathir, 94, was in the kingdom for 3 days. He left the kingdom for Malaysia before flying to Russia on Wednesday. Khmer has asked the government to refrain from increasing the agreed-upon pay bump for government workers by $5. It said the bump reduces the industry competitiveness due to the added financial burden on employers. Ken Lu, Secretary General for the Government Manufacturers Association in Cambodia, said the minimum wage continues to increase, burdening employers who must bear the cost. Mr. Lu said, even though the final decision rests with the government, it should consider the burden employers have to bear. He said, quote, next year on the top of the wage increase, if any, factories will also be required to pay quite a heavy pension fund contributions of another 4%. We respectfully request the government not to add in another $5 as in the past. This is to reduce cost pressures and help the industry to stay afloat. In the past few years, it has become the norm for Prime Minister Hun Sen to add $5 after the final agreed-upon figure is reached between employers, unions, and the Labor Ministry. This $5 is often thought to be shouldered by the government, but in fact is covered by employers. The current minimum wage for workers is $182 and an increase of $12 when compared to last year $170. Minimum wage negotiations between employers, the government and unions began on August 29 and are expected to end before September 25. Prime Minister Hun Sen on Wednesday issued a directive instructing officials to strengthen flood measures. Mr. Hun Sen said a low-pressure system and seasonal winds in the Southeast Asia region will lead to heavy rainfall in some provinces in the kingdom within the coming days. He said water levels will rise, which could lead to floods, especially in some provinces along the upper Mekong River from Sunday until Wednesday. Mr. Hun Sen said, quote, "The government would like to instruct all ministries, relevant institutions and local authorities to conduct necessary measures to prevent floods and minimize the impact they may have on property and people's life." The government has streamlined the process of freezing the assets of major criminals as it continues to tackle major crimes across the kingdom, including drug trafficking, illegal logging, money laundering and other offenses. In a statement obtained by Khmer Times, Justice Minister Ongwong Watana said the National Police and investigators at relevant ministry can now get approval directly from court prosecutors to have the assets of criminal suspects frozen. The statement added that authorities can also freeze the assets of those suspected of human trafficking and terrorism financing. In the statement, Mr. Wong Watana said, quote, "Police must continue to investigate these large-scale drug cases and send seized assets to the courts. Courts must cooperate with police to further investigate related assets and proceed with freezing." And on to our top business stories. Cambodia was the fifth largest exporter of organic rice to the European Union last year, with local companies confident exports will continue to rise in the upcoming years. Demand for organic rice in the EU and other key markets like the United States, Australia and China is soaring as consumers become more environmentally and health conscious, insider said. According to figures from the EU shared with the Cambodian Rice Federation, Cambodia exported about 8,500 tons of organic rice to the bloc last year, representing about 4% of all EU organic rice imports. The US was the largest exporter of organic rice to the EU, accounting for almost 70% of the market. It was followed by Pakistan and India with 10 and 9% respectively. Thailand came in at number 4 with about 5% of the market. Local rice exporters told Khmer Times that the amount of Cambodian organic rice shipped to the bloc has increased this year. About 90% of all Cambodian exports of organic rice to the EU last year belonged to Amru Rice Cambodia. Kan Kunthi, vice president of Amru Rice, said the company has inter-contract farming schemes with about 5,000 farmers, and this year it aims to export 20,000 tons of organic rice to foreign markets, up to 90% of which will be sent to the EU. This is all for this week. Join us again next time for more. As always, if you like what you see, please like, share, comment and follow. I'm Vida on behalf of the team. Have a good weekend.